right when they land on Barton 4, we kind of start to see Hunter and Crosshair actually acknowledge each other's existence for once.
The boys are fighting.
Yes, the boys are fighting.
I was like,
Because,
oh.
yeah, immediately they get into this argument. Welcome back to This is the Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. My name's Austin SWE. I'm here with Scotty Holiday on this holiday because, Scotty, did you know that March 7th is National Name Tag Day? And I just did our name tags.
Oh. Okay. Happy International Name Tag Day, I guess.
You know what's funny is I wanted to do an intro like that where I was like, Scotty Holiday and play off that, oh, it's a holiday. So I looked up holidays and then I saw name tag was on there. So I was like, oh, I could fit that into the intro.
It left more to be desired, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's whatever. But we're talking about the Bad Batch today. I'm super excited. But before we get into that, This is the Wayseekers releases every Thursday during Bad Batch season on YouTube and your podcast platforms. So make sure to subscribe to us so you never miss out on an episode. All right, Scotty, which Bad Batch episode are we talking about today?
Today we're going to be discussing episode 5, The Return. And can you believe we're already on episode 5?
Yeah, it's going a little fast. But then again, remember we had those 3 episodes at the start. So it's like, in reality, we'd only be on episode 3. Oh my gosh, we'd only just now be getting to the Crosshair and Omega team up. Can you imagine that?
I know, and I was the one who was like, yeah, I like it fast and hard, just like the Bad Batch. So
yes,
it's cool.
Yes. Well, yeah, I just want to start by saying that this episode, once again, I know I've said this every fucking week for Bad Batch Season 3, favorite episode of the Bad Batch, or at least favorite episode of this season. I mean, for me, this is the sequel to my favorite episode prior, Season 2, Episode 12, The Outpost, with Crosshair and Mayday.
R.I.P. Mayday, the hot bearded clone.
Oh my God, R.I.P. R.I.P. But that episode, I always loved it. I know everybody else has always loved that episode. It's a standout of
good.
Season 2.
Great.
Exactly. And it's the start of Crosshair's redemption. And if you followed along every week for these Bad Batch episodes, you know that I'm a sucker for this goddamn redemption story. And I'm absolutely loving it. And we got that in this episode as well, even further. We talked about last week, what do we think is going to happen? Are they just going to instantly kind of mesh together? Is there going to be a conversation at the start? Scotty, I want to ask you, how did you feel about what we got there, where it was kind of Crosshair being distant, avoiding conversing at all, and then really ignoring Hunter and Hunter and Crosshair kind of being at odds here? How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, it's like we just talked about it like 3 days ago or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's not talk about that.
But yeah, I really liked, because if anything, I feel like the only thing we missed was the initial just like awkward period of them just giving weird looks and like having no conversation. So we got to the point where they were like or Crosshair was being distant and it was clearly irritating Hunter. So I really like that we finally got to see that play out, because that's something that we talked about in last week's episode that we wanted to see. We didn't want them to just rush past it and everybody's happy, or you know what. And I love that Omega was kind of like the link, and then later on in the episode even Echo was like, Omega, you just got to let them do it.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
There's no blood this time, so it went well.
Yeah, which implies that there might have been a time where there was blood. I don't know. But no, I really enjoyed that. I really love, I said this once again every other episode, but Omega and Crosshair being put together, it's just amazing. And now I'm loving,
it's a good dynamic.
Like I feel like he's starting to be broken down more, where he was joking with her when Omega was like little brother, and he laughed, or he made that joke with Echo being like, oh, no hug for me. And
you don't want to do the voice?
No, I can't do the voice. You go ahead. You're the Bad Batch impressionist, according to our comments.
I didn't prepare for this, so it's probably going to be really bad. But he's like, oh, no hug for me. No, I can't do it.
That was great. That was perfect. I like my intro. There was a lot left to be desired, as you said. So.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just stick to Omega and Wrecker. I'll do my Wrecker
Yeah.
impersonation when we get to that part.
Yeah. Oh, I love Wrecker. But we return to Pabu this episode,
Yeah.
and just made for such a beautiful vibe in this first half. This first half of the episode, I was like, damn, I feel like this series has really, in terms of animation and visual style and just kind of everything, it's really surpassed the Clone Wars. And I mean, it makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because it's, just going to continue to develop. The animation is just going to continue to get better. But
Mm-hmm.
the kind of idea when season one came out was that it's not ever going to surpass season seven in terms of visual style, or the Siege of Mandalore arc
Yeah.
specifically. It's not really going to beat that. But in my opinion, I'm looking at these shots on Pabu. I'm like, holy shit, this place is gorgeous. Like, I know it was
I
really
mean,
gorgeous
yeah.
last season, but Jesus Christ, this season with Pabu.
I mean, it's funny. It's like the Clone Wars finally got its lighting right.
Yeah, yeah.
because the portion where they're all, after Echo arrives and they're all sat around the table
Mhm.
talking, and like it's in that kind of dusk time frame, I was like,
Right.
oh, look at all of Clone
Yeah.
Force 99 looking very handsome, and this
Yeah.
gorgeous like sunset lighting. I was like, damn,
Mhm.
even Echo, his pale ass, like the light was reflecting on his
Yeah.
eyes, and I was like, oh, how pretty. I said to my best friend while we watched it, I was like, Echo needs to stay on Pabu for a bit to try to get some color.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm. Get a
because
little tan going.
poor thing looks rough. But something I actually wanted to mention is, and if you saw my short, I had some things to say about Omega's hair,
Oh, yeah,
or if
yeah,
you
and
listened
and
to
a
our
few
episode
episodes
about it.
ago, yeah.
And while I still don't love it, I will say that she, in this new outfit that they gave her, that green kind of like little vest knitted
Uh-huh.
thing and shirt, she looks great. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the right color for her skin tone and her hair. I don't know.
Mhm.
And maybe it's just Pabu. Maybe it's just
Right.
everybody,
Yeah.
when you're on Pabu, you look amazing. And she
Yeah.
just looks like a regular person. She doesn't look like she's dressed up for battle, or like she's
Yeah.
trying to, dress up as an adventurer like in
Yeah,
season
yeah.
two.
Well, it really feels like she's able to come into her own more. Like, I feel like the costume, it's a really great costume, but I feel like it also really fits Omega and who she is. So, yeah.
Especially with her being the adult and the older
Yeah.
sister in this
Yeah.
episode.
Right. Yeah, I always forget that. Her and Boba Fett, they're actually the oldest clones, but also the youngest. It's wild. But after we see how Crosshair is getting into the group and, kind of seeing him avoid things and how things are going, Echo comes back. We start to get into the actual plot of this episode and kind of the conflict going on, which is that Omega has Nalase's data pad, but
Hmm.
it's just not working anymore. And so, in order to get it to work, they need to go to an Imperial facility where they can go to an Imperial terminal to plug it in and retrieve the information. All Empire bullshit that they have to do. And
Hmm.
Crosshair's like, oh, well, I was the main character of an episode last season, and I went to this planet called Barton 4. Barton 4. See, look at me knowing my Star Wars. Totally
Yeah,
didn't write it in my notes.
I didn't even
Um,
know the name. So,
but obviously, it's a snow planet of last season, and he offers to take them there, which is really interesting for Crosshair's redemption story at this point, because not only does he now have to confront his past with the Bad Batch, he now has to confront the start of this whole redemption journey, which was on Barton 4, and, relive what went on with Mayday. We see the scene
mhm.
where he finds Mayday's helmet, the other clones' helmets, and puts them on display.
Yeah,
Really humanized.
that was
Yeah.
really touching to watch. It made me a little
Yeah.
like, hmm.
Yeah, especially because we know, like, the Bad Batch, remember season 1, episode 1, they hated the regs, the
Oh
reg
yeah.
clones. And now the whole batch is kind of learning to be like, these are our brothers no matter what, and we're kind of in the same boat here. Before it was like the clones felt like this batch were the only ones that were genetically modified and used for some type of war and had no other use. But all the other clones are also finding out that they really had no purpose either, and that they were created for a war. And I feel like it's really bringing them all together. We see Omega really wanting to save all the clones from Mount Tantus. I'm just loving this, like, kind of clone community going on here in the Bad Batch. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And one thing that I noticed in this episode, and I was like, "Oh, the batch is back together again."
Yes.
And we don't
Minus
have Tech
Tech.
anymore, but
Yeah.
we do have Crosshair back. So
Yeah.
it's like it was crazy thinking back to the first few episodes where the Bad
Mhm.
Batch was Hunter and Wrecker, and that was it.
Yeah.
And now we've
Yeah.
kind of got everybody back together again. So that was really nice to see. And
Yeah.
I don't know when Crosshair was first describing the planet that they were going to go to,
Mhm.
I was like, it's going to be
Right.
Barton 4.
Right.
I
But it
knew
did look a little
immediately.
different. It looked a little different. I think it was our friend of the show, Tet, who pointed out that the lighting was a little different here, and maybe it's because the Empire is no longer there. So maybe this planet is kind of maybe,
Reclaiming itself.
yeah, reclaiming itself, kind of thriving more. And maybe that's not how it like actually works canonically, but I feel like that's kind of a good visual thing, going on.
Yeah.
Like it's a brighter place now. It looks kind of, you know, habitable maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
No, I think that's really great and a really smart thing to point out because there's definitely visual cues that are added in for storytelling in
Right.
any media. And I mean, usually we don't see it with snow. We see
Hmm.
it like with greenery. So we'll see like,
Right.
nature, reclaiming over like housing or like
Hmm.
metal or like whatever it is. Normally we'll see like grass and weeds and stuff growing. But in this situation, we had kind of snow
Yeah.
burying the base almost. So I definitely feel like that was on purpose. And I love that
Hmm.
Tet pointed that out in the
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out Tet. I'm sure they're gonna watch this.
Hopefully, they click into this specific timestamp so they don't miss it.
Yes, yes. But right when they land on Barton 4, we kind of start to see Hunter and Crosshair actually acknowledge each other's existence for once.
The boys are fighting.
Yes, the boys are fighting.
I was like,
Cuz yeah,
"Oh,
immediately they get into this argument, and this whole dynamic's really interesting to me because from both of their point of views, neither of them are exactly wrong for the way they think or the way they feel. Hunter really has no reason to trust Crosshair in this moment, even though we've seen it ourselves. Hunter just he doesn't know, and even though the rest of the batch is a little more accepting, he's the leader, so he's the one that's going to be the most cautious and kind of be like he said, you thought that you were going to come in here and not give an explanation. How are we supposed to know that you all of a sudden changed your mind? But then on the opposite side of that, it's like Crosshair calling Hunter out and being like, well, let's be honest. The real reason you're upset here is because I helped Omega escape and you didn't. And also, you're kind of the reason that Omega was kidnapped. I don't want to say the reason because there's a little victim blaming here. The Empire is the reason that Omega was
yeah."
kidnapped. But, if Hunter had not ignored Crosshair's call, like Crosshair said, could this have been avoided?
I mean, that was a bombshell because I didn't even
Hmm.
think about that, but he wasn't wrong.
Yeah,
Like, he was
neither of them were.
complete well,
Yeah.
I think that Hunter was overreacting a bit. I think that Crosshair honestly wasn't acting much different than how he was before when they were together as a group,
Hmm.
but like Hunter's very much on this like offensive like
Right.
I don't know, Crosshair says one thing and Hunter's like, "You want to say that to my face?" Like
Right. Yeah.
that weird energy. He's very and I think that's why Crosshair hits him where it hurts, and
Hmm.
he's like, "You're the reason Omega was brought on Tantus because you didn't trust me when I
Right.
risked everything to reach out to you." And yeah,
Well,
I I do
he's
agree with what you said. Like,
mhm.
yeah, is that completely true? Not necessarily, but like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's what happened.
I mean, he's in the wrong in the sense that he is saying all this to avoid the real reason he's upset, which is
Yeah.
obviously that he wasn't the one to save Omega. And it's kind of like he's kind of confused now because it's like Crosshair is all of a sudden acting right in his mind, like he just comes out of nowhere and is like, I'm here, I saved Omega, I'm a good guy now, and that's what's going on here. And Hunter, he's kind of like, what the hell? I think there's kind of that part of him where he's kind of like, well, you didn't act that way before, and it kind of fucked all of us over and all the pain that we went through because of you and because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But like he says in the end of the episode, he kind of has his own regrets too, things that he shouldn't have done, things that he doesn't like that he
Mm-hmm.
did. And so the only thing you can kind of do is look forward to the future and be better. And me, redemption. So that was my shit. The whole dynamic between those two.
I feel like I love that line too at the end,
Hmm.
just because I
Yes.
feel like that's something that I say when speaking about issues and
Yeah, and I
stuff.
have the line here too. I have regrets too, Crosshair. All we can do is keep trying to be better. And who knows? There may just be hope for us yet.
And there totally will be,
Hmm.
because they put aside their bullshit
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like actually communicated with each other. And
exactly.
that's why I make the joke the boys are fighting, because
Hmm.
men aren't the best
Yeah,
at communicating and
right.
talking about how they feel. And
Yeah,
that's what they needed to do. That's why
exactly.
Crosshair was saying those nasty comments, because he knew being like, "You're just mad you didn't save Omega and I did," was
Right.
just going to upset Hunter and piss him off, because he knew Hunter was working so hard to try to save Omega and he couldn't
Hmm.
find her.
No, you're 100% right. It's that communication that helped them out here. And I really hope that there continues to be more conversation. I'm kind of in the camp here
Mhm.
where, like I said, I really love this episode, but I do kind of wish that there was a little more. But I also don't think it's the end of their conversations. But I wish that there was more of a conversation for those two to have about their differences that wasn't interrupted by a giant ass monster coming in. And it was
Mm.
needed. The monster was needed, because we know that it eventually gave Crosshair the opportunity to show that he will save Hunter. He will save everyone. He's a good person now, or
He
at
gets
least
to
trying to
prove
be a
what
good person.
he
Yeah,
gets to back up what he's saying.
exactly. So it was needed, and there is kind of that show don't tell aspect, but at the same time, I like them having conversations. And Star Wars, we've talked about this on the podcast before. They're a little iffy where just having actual conversations, Andor and The Last Jedi kind of being the outliers there, where they will actually
Yeah.
stop and talk and have a conversation that's not like the cheesiest thing you've ever heard. And we were kind of getting that in this episode when they were all sitting at the table. I'm like, damn, maybe that's why it looks so visually different to me, because how many Clone Wars episodes do we get where it's not just a million moving pieces all at once? It's just people having a discussion. I want to see them sit and have conversations, and I really hope that that wasn't the end of this like kind of feud here or the need to communicate. I really hope that Crosshair and Hunter continue to kind of have conversations about what happened. How do you feel?
No, I love that you brought this up, because
Mhm.
I kind of was like, we joked last episode being like, "Oh, this week's gonna be a filler episode,"
Right.
and I am kind of bummed we didn't get a filler episode of them just sitting on Pabu and talking, because I also was like,
Yeah.
"Damn," which I know it's good. It's a good thing that they went to Barton for, because like they were Hunter and Crosshair were forced to work together against the
Mhm.
worm. And if they
Right.
didn't have that experience, that forcing them to work together is what made them open up, and Crosshair prove himself on what he was saying of being a good guy, and
Mhm.
Hunter, being like, I need to stop being such a hard ass,
Right.
and just give him his space and his time to get back into the Bad Batch essentially, and give him
Right.
some grace. But I do kind of wish that they just sat on Pabu and we could
Yeah.
have got an episode of them waiting for Echo to get there to have more conversations, because
Yeah.
they even touched on Tech in a
Yeah.
fleeting moment. It was
Mhm.
just like oh, and Tech's not here to help us get into the data pad.
Yeah.
Everybody makes a sad face and kind of looks down. And then
Right.
Crosshair's like, I know where we can go.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just a nice, episode about kind of fixing what's going on, these conflicts within the Bad Batch. But I guess, like I said, there is kind of that argument you can make about show, don't tell. But I don't know. I,
No,
I'm sure there's a balance that you can find
no,
here.
we want to hear. We want them. We want to
Yeah.
see them tell each other. I don't want to see the boys fighting. I want to see the boys communicating.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they can argue all they want. Like I wasn't I didn't have a problem with them arguing or anything. Like I just wish that there was more than, the monster comes in, they attack him, Crosshair saves Hunter, and then they just give each other a head nod. But to your point about like a filler episode, like I said last week, I do feel like there's not going to be any filler here. I feel like this honestly might be the most filler type of episode that we're going to get this season. Like there's a big monster and they're kind of filling that space with a big monster battle and such. It was basically the whole second half of the episode, but it
Mhm.
also moved the plot along really well because I feel
Yeah,
like the plot, at least right now, until we start mixing Mount Tantus in with the Bad Batch, I feel like right now it is very focused on the Bad Batch and these kind of character arcs and character relationships and mending things. I feel like it's in a repair era, a
but
rehabilitate, I don't even know why I'm trying to use that word,
rehabilitation.
rehabilitation. Yes, we're
Yeah.
fucking idiots on this
Oh no, speak for yourself. I knew what that word meant.
podcast.
Um, but
Uh huh.
yeah, and they even dropped the hint by having Echo come in and be like, "We've been trying to get shit on Tantus this whole time." Like,
Right. Right.
and so it's like, oh, Rex and Echo are going to be working off,
Hmm.
doing their own thing, while the Bad Batch is kind of rehabilitating their
Right.
relationships.
Uh huh. Look at you.
But I like that, and it
Yeah.
gives us like this kind of first section of the season plot
Yeah.
until we
Hmm.
get to Ventress, and then she takes over.
Oh my fucking god. I hope
I
it's
found a way to bring it up,
I hope she has a 30-second cameo in the last episode, and that's all
and
you get. Everything that we
and
saw in the trailer is what we get of Ventress.
and then I unalive myself.
But one thing we did forget to mention is Crosshair's armor. They kept his armor in the back. Go ahead, say your little line.
Oh, it didn't feel right getting rid of it.
Yes, Wrecker is very sentimental. Didn't get rid of it, but I
Wrecker
mean,
is he's the cutest in this episode.
yeah,
Wrecker
yeah,
is so cute to Crosshair.
the
Then he does
hug.
the little group hug at the end, and he's like,
Uh,
"Oh, you guys!" Like he's so cute. And when he's
King.
like, "If Omega trusts him, that's good enough for me," I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. That's my king right there. He said women's rights, and he knows what's up. But do you think that once Crosshair kind of starts to become more involved and become a regular part of the Bad Batch again, that he might repaint his armor to kind of match what Wrecker and Hunter and Echo have done, where they kind of personalized it?
I think that'd be a really great way of showing his growth,
Yeah, like a visual
showing
thing.
instead of telling.
Yeah.
And in a situation where that makes sense, for it to have that visual cue, kind of like we talked about earlier with the
Hmm.
snow planet and the
Yeah.
lighting being different, nature kind of taking it over. Crosshair symbolically showing the growth he's made by
Hmm.
updating his armor.
Hmm.
I do think that could happen, and I would actually really like that. I didn't think about it because I
Yeah.
was kind of like, ew, not the season one look, the red and black. We're
Right.
not going back to that. I love the teal and orange, and
Right.
Wrecker's like green and yellow. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think, and I hope we will see that for Crosshair,
Hmm.
but I think it won't happen until like the second half of the season. Maybe
Yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
that kind of double.
It'll
What
be
are we getting, the
like,
double episode next week after like 6 and 7? Like at some point after they've gone on a couple
mhm.
missions, and
Yeah.
and I'm sure that Wrecker will be like, "Oh, I like the change in the armor," like,
Yes, yes.
and he'll be
So I
like,
think
"Thanks."
right. Oh my god. I wonder what color he would paint it,
I
but
don't know.
hopefully not black.
Yeah,
Hopefully something more colorful.
yeah, he'll paint some gray on it,
Right.
gray accents. That's your
Yeah.
boy though, so you'd be the one to know what color he would pick. Pink.
I don't even know because like I really feel like even I mean maybe he'll become happier. I really want to see him be happy, but I feel like even now, even though like he's still trying to be a good person, I still feel like he would dress like you, black only.
Says the person wearing a black shirt right now.
But it's a Clone Wars shirt. Oh my god, I think it has Ventress on it. I should have waited for your fuck ass episode to come out.
Okay, well, my shirt says protect trans kids. So
Oh,
I
okay, had
win.
to one up me, whatever. First trans kids in the Star Wars The Clone Wars. Okay, Ahsoka. Hello.
Omega.
She's from the Bad Batch, so get it right. Anyways. But yeah, I think this episode was fantastic overall. Loved it. I know I said at the beginning of this episode, I'm like, favorite episode. Now that we talked about a little bit, I might need to bump it down a little bit, but I still absolutely loved this episode and enjoyed it. Is there anything else you want to say about this episode before you read some comments from the folks?
No, other than I really liked it. It was good. I do wish we got, like I said, I would have liked more talking time, which like probably me, like, I don't know, 5 years ago would be like, ew, what the fuck?
Right.
Yeah, that's just where I am in my Star Wars now. I'm like, I want
Yeah.
to see these people sit and talk.
Well, I think audiences as a whole want that nowadays. I mean, it's been a topic of conversation with like I think Bob Iger even mentioned about how, you know, you look at the top movies nowadays, Oppenheimer, Dune. These are movies that are about people talking primarily, and 5 years ago, I feel like audiences would have considered them boring as fuck. Now, they're the most popular things ever because people want that real human connection to these stories. And I feel like the Bad Batch really has the potential to kind of reach people on that level. And I feel like they're doing a better job than most Star Wars, but
Yeah.
there's still some room for improvement as always when it comes to
Yeah.
Disney.
And I mean, Ahsoka's got that great table in her ship. Her and Sabine should just kind of sit and chat a little bit longer on it.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to mention about this episode before we get into our audience comments
Mhm.
is AZ.
Oh yeah.
He's back.
He's back. I remember a lot of people talking about that. Like, did they just leave him with Sid? And I feel
I
like
thought they did.
I feel like they probably saw people talking about that, and they were like, "Oh fuck, we need to
Okay.
include that." Because how did his ass get to Pabu?
He flew over on his little no, he didn't. I don't know. He was probably like Omega, like shortly after she left, because she was with AZ. If we think back to season 2 when she was escaping, so he got out of Sid's parlor. Now, how he got onto the Marauder, I don't know. Poor AZ. I was thinking about it. He's been replaced twice at this point. First by Gonki, and now by Betcha.
Yeah, but now they're all like friends. They're like just chilling.
Oh, that'll be our filler episode. Omega goes on an adventure with Gonki, Batcher, and AZ to get melons from Lower Pabu during a tsunami.
Hey, why not? They used to market this show. Remember season 2? Parents, the Bad Batch releasing.
You mean Parents, the Bad Batch.
Parents, make sure to check out this episode about war and turmoil
and trauma.
All right, so we've asked you guys on Twitter and Instagram and all the social medias that you should follow us on to tell us your thoughts on Bad Batch episode 5, because we want to know, and we're going to be reading these comments every episode. So make sure to follow us on those places so you can be featured in our little audience interaction here. All right, first off, from Darth Neo 66, what is your favorite season of the Bad Batch?
I feel like I can't answer this yet. I can tell you it's definitely not season 1.
You're right. I was gonna ask, like, do you think it's a little unfair for me to say season 3 already? Like, is that even allowed? I mean, I've been having the most fun with. So far, I've loved every single episode. There's not been one where I'm like, come on.
Well, you know why?
Get on with the show. Why?
You know why? Because you love Crosshair.
Oh, okay. Well,
for me, I was going to say, as much as I'm loving season 3, I loved season 2, but what characters did that focus on? Tech and Echo, who are my favorites. So, yeah, I mean, in all honesty, whatever. you like the grumpy one. You just want him to be good, and he has yet to get there. My guys are good boys from the beginning. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're so sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do
But
you think Tech was a good guy in that episode with Omega when he was dismissing her feelings? Yeah, I didn't think so.
that is
Anyways.
not fair. He couldn't help it. He wasn't dismissing them. He just
uh,
his mind processes feelings and emotions differently.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
His
Well,
words, not mine.
well,
They had a
R.I.P.
moment where they sat and talked,
Yeah. You got a point there. You got a
and it was
point
a
there.
beautiful moment. So I guess for now I'll say season 2, but Darth Neo
Yeah.
66, get back to me after season 3 ends, because as I said
Yeah.
earlier, Ventress is coming, so that
Oh my
might take
god.
the cake.
Right.
So this next one comes from ABS_reviews, and they said, I have to admit, as good as the episode was, I was a bit miffed that Crosshair reacting to Tech's absence was glanced over. Same with Echo meeting
Mm,
up with the batch. Here's to hoping we'll explore Fee's mindset a good amount in the next few episodes. Ooh, these are some
mm-hmm.
great points. What do you
Yeah.
think about Crosshair's reaction or lack of reaction to Tech's death, for one? And we kind of
Yeah, I don't
touched on it
know.
earlier.
It just makes me wonder when he exactly found out this information. Um, I think it's just something that they just skipped over altogether because it's probably something that Omega had to tell Crosshair, and it was probably very traumatic. And how much do we want to see that poor little kid go through something like that, having to relive that moment over and over again? So I don't know. I feel like there might be room for something, but I don't know. I'm still wondering if they're gonna bring Tech back. I'm still leaning towards they're probably not, and I really don't want them to. But at the same
Mhm.
time, if they are kind of avoiding these conversations about Tech, is there a possibility? I don't really know. It's not what ABS was talking about here though. So
Well, going back to their response, saying here's to hoping we'll explore Fee's mindset a good amount too. Maybe they're saving the tech conversation for Fee to be the one
right
to bring it
for his
into it because
girlfriend.
of
Hmm.
their relationship that they built up in season 2. I didn't even think about that
Right.
until ABS_reviews reply.
Right. Maybe
I
they're
think that'd
waiting
be
for Fee to come around
perfect.
to have like a memorial or something on Pabu.
And I'm sure she can regulate her emotions better than the men of Clone Force 99.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
she'll
I'm
she'll be the
100%
one to
sure.
sit down and explain it to us, and hopefully give us that like tender moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that the rest of the batch can't show emotions, because if anything, Wrecker, he's an
Yeah.
emotional himbo, sweet boy.
Yeah. Oh,
But I
I
don't think
love
he's gonna
him.
be. If anything, he'd be like, "Yeah, I miss Tech." But
Yeah.
that'd probably be the extent of it. I hope we do get a good moment with Fee. I think that'll be great for her as a character too, because as
Right.
far as we've seen, she's just very like, let's go get these treasures, and
Right.
I like to do cool artsy things. So it'd be a
I
good
love
moment of
Fee.
development for her. I do too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with the comment about Echo meeting up with the batch, I liked that. Um, and I don't think we necessarily needed more, because I think Crosshair's comment about no hug for me was like
Right.
the perfect, perfect way to bring Echo into it. And then just Echo
Yeah.
being like, well, it depends on the intel.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I was happy with it. I was happy with it overall, and I feel like there's still more to come. Like you said, when Fee comes in, I feel like there has to be some sort of mention of Tech. It also reminds me the last two episodes we mentioned that trailer and the shots of Crosshair working with the Bad Batch and Fee at the beginning of the trailer. They were not flashbacks, and you were trying to fucking gaslight me talking about, well, what if it's Fee in the armor? I
what
was
if
like,
it's
what the
Corky
fuck are you talking
Kreese?
about? Right. All this bullshit. Well,
Well,
turns out it's gonna be him.
guess they're going to the place that looks like the place they went on in the Mandalorian.
Yes.
To
Well,
an
I mean,
Imperial refinery, because that was what we saw in the trailer that we haven't seen yet. Come on to part
yeah.
6 and 7.
Right, right. I really think, like I said last week, that the mindset there was everyone was gonna see Crosshair there and be like, "That's a red herring," because they're obviously not gonna show Crosshair in the trailer, and so everyone was like, "Oh, that's not a spoiler." Meanwhile, the whole time it really was a spoiler, but you tricked yourself into thinking it wasn't. So I think that was kind of smart there. They got something going on at the marketing department.
I was gonna say, good job, Star Wars Lucasfilm marketing.
Yes, yes. All right, this next one comes from Nawiyak_99 on Instagram. So sorry if I butchered that name. They say, I cried like a baby at so much of the music, the flying lessons and Mayday motifs. I mean, Scotty, you're the musician here. I know we both appreciate the Kiner soundtrack, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you appreciated it more than I did.
Yeah, especially towards the end of
Oh,
this
yeah.
episode, which I, I'm I am the music person, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't really pay as much attention.
Mm-hmm.
Or I shouldn't say much attention. I don't really listen back to the music from animation because it's so much shorter of pieces usually, unless
Mm-hmm.
it's like a main theme. So I didn't recognize what it was. It almost sounded a little bit like Sears theme. Not to bring up Deborah
Mm-hmm.
Wilson again, but shout out
Go
Deborah
check out our
Wilson.
interview.
But I think that's probably what Naoyaka is referring to with the Mayday motifs. So whatever that music was at the end of the episode, that did really stand out to me, and it was very pretty but very somber, and I really
Mm-hmm.
liked it. The music was great in
Yeah.
this episode, and I mean it's been great. The Kiners have been killing it. Like,
Yeah. I love the music. They always kill it every time. And I also, one thing I noticed in this episode, they're really good at choosing. I mean, it might just be a team effort. Sure, they work with the director and such, but whoever is really good at choosing the moments to not include music. There was a moment where
mm-hmm,
when Hunter and the whole batch was discussing, and Omega was like, "No, I have to go. I'd left the clones behind. I have to go back and save them." Is the moment when he's thinking about it that the music cuts, like it just abruptly stops.
mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was a really interesting choice because it was like the music was telling a story too. You know what I mean? Where it was like, I don't know. I'm not the best at like deciphering these things, but I'm like, was it possibly he was, stopping his thought process of, oh, she's just a little kid. I have to trust her. Like, was it that? Like, kind of the stopping of that? I don't know, but I feel like it was something. It was something.
I mean, I don't know why you all gagging. The Kiners bring it to you every episode.
Exactly. But yeah, I feel like I don't know where these episodes are gonna go. That's one thing that's really cool is that they have me really wanting more and wanting to get to the next episode, but they don't have to like end on these really big cliffhangers, except for last week. They don't have to end on those, really big cliffhangers to make me care to come back. It's more that I care to see how these relationships develop.
hmm
I mean, I know you're tuning in for Ventress, but I'm over here for these relationships and the character arcs. No, I'm just kidding. You have any predictions for where these episodes could go?
I kind of alluded to that already, but I imagine that we're gonna get, and this is me doing the boring out of universe prediction of being like, well, in the trailer they showed them like escaping some kind of refinery or something.
Yeah.
So with Fee, so that's probably what we're gonna see in this next two-parter. But I
Hmm.
think that kind of like we alluded to, maybe the heart of those episodes will be getting a moment with Fee talking about
Yeah.
Tech's death. Especially, imagine if, she has a bad reaction to Crosshair being like,
Hmm.
Tech gave his life and you betrayed the batch and now you just expect them to come back like
Right.
open arms. Imagine if it went in something like that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I really didn't think about that. That she might not be like accepting of that, but I don't know. I feel like she might also be a bridge at the same
Yeah.
time, like
She
kind of
she's
being like, y'all need to stop acting like men. Okay,
yeah, I mean she
cut the
was great.
bullshit.
She was great with Hunter and Omega and being like, let
Hmm.
Omega like do things. She don't need to stay
Right.
on the ship all the time. Like, let her learn. So
Exactly.
it'd be interesting if they went that really deep route with Fee. And while I would like that, I'm sure they won't. Like
Hmm.
Parents, the Bad Batch.
Right.
So yeah, she'll probably just be the link. But yeah, if we just get like a quiet moment with Fee, maybe even her having a moment with Crosshair,
Hmm.
might bring
Yeah.
him around.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
or
She's
bring,
really good at that kind of thing. So
we love
super
Fee.
excited.
So hopefully
Yes.
we'll see her in the next episode.
Yes, and then Fee can be your standout character next week. But for this week's episodes, who was your favorite standout character?
I'm gonna pick, and the past few episodes I've just picked like some goofy bullshit in the background just because I've liked them. But this episode, I'm gonna have to pick Omega
Mhm.
because she was just a for lack of a better way of putting it, a standout. Like she was almost the adult in the situation. The growth that she's made, the maturity, how she's grown, like that really showed off in this episode. And when she stood her ground and was like, "No, I'm going on the mission, Hunter," even
Mhm.
after he said no, and then the next scene we see her like in the cockpit
Right.
just sitting, and I just started cackling when I saw that because it
Yeah.
was like, oh, she wasn't taking no for an answer. She girl
Nope.
bossed her way into the mission as she should.
Right.
So Omega was
Right.
really, really a standout for me. I mean, she's been a standout all season, but I feel like this episode really showed how
Yeah.
much growth she's made since season one.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Yeah, yeah. For me, I feel like it'd be cheating to pick Crosshair. I picked him in the first episode, but obviously that's my standout character. But honestly, have to go with Wrecker. He had some of the best moments, like we already talked about. Those moments where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like keeping the armor and bringing them in for a hug, and you know, just oh my god, I was laughing when he had to dig through the snow to get through the door because they had Batcher doing it
Yeah,
before. I'm like, oh, what are they saying? That he's a fucking dog? Or
I
maybe they're
know. And
saying he
then
has that dog in him.
literally in that moment too, where he was like, "Why is it always got to be a big creature, a monster?" I'm like,
I told you about
honestly,
that last week because I saw it in one of the trailers of him saying
I
that.
know. And how real was that for us as the audience? Because like
Right.
that's always the case. Why?
Yep.
I think that's a
Exactly.
great choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Um,
standout actually was the worm. Uh,
oh my god. Remind me of the worm from SpongeBob. The one with the
oh
tunnel.
yeah. Even that, it kind of reminded me of the crate dragon too.
Right.
The
Right.
way it just kind of like glided through the terrain and whatnot and like
Hmm.
broke up the surface.
Yeah. Well,
So
that one might just be because they're creatively bankrupt, but
shout out to the worm. Great
shout
job. You're
out to
doing
the
amazing,
worm.
sweetie.
Yes, yes. Well, at risk of making this podcast discussion twice as long as the actual episode, why don't you send us out of here?
Yes. Make sure to follow us on social media at wayseekerspod so you never miss out on an episode and especially all of our Bad Batch coverage. Thank you all so much for listening, as always, and may the Force be with you.
Bye. I should start saying always.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Deborah.